Already once they have used third-party government 2 years back. PSC has used the third-party government. Right. Now let's say largely people know globalization, and when they know globalization, they know this part only. Right. Less people know about this part. There is a difference. By this, we are also telling you difference between NPM, good governance, globalization. They are not the same. NPM is, let's say that it is against democratic governance. That's why NPM represents marketization, regulation and facilitation. But globalization is itself democratization. Globalization is not only market orientation, globalization also has democratic governance inherent in it because it is influenced by that liberal democratic values. So that's why globalization has promoted greater democratization in the world. Most of the countries in the world became, let's say, liberal democratic state, including fall of Berlin Wall. Let's say this is characteristics of good governance. It has characteristics of civil society. Means globalization also talk that the role of state should not only give, let's say, that powers to market, it should also give powers to civil society. Right. That's why in the era of globalization, the role of civil society organization also increased. And when civil society organization's role will increase, it will be democratization. Basically, civil society organization, new public management means this private sector. The third party government is nothing but it is led by private sector and civil society organizations. They, let's say that start playing more roles. Either you say third party government or you say non-state actors, it will mean the same thing. And that way, this is how you have to relate how globalization started giving emphasis on this, which resulted into giving more role to. And this more role given to, once you give more role, this will talk about minimal state. Minimal state. So once a question was asked that statistics, I always struggle in this. The term, let's say, I know statistical aspect, but destatization. Right. That term I know means it used a term, let's say, statistics. Right. Once a question was asked, it means like this, destatization. Globalization has promoted destatization. Right. Destatization means minimal state, reduction in the role of the state. This is what, let's say that it is minimal state. So this we have to write how it has become minimal state. This established minimal state. These things can be written. Some developments can be written. So you can refer some developments. Some developments related, let's say we have new economic policies that you can write how we have, or let's say other countries example can be given. Marketization. You can see how civil societies, they have been participating in different activities, let's say KMKSS, or let's say international civil society organizations that you can see. So some examples can be given on this. The main focus will be on explaining this. Then it says comment, you have to comment it. So you should agree on this, but then you should go a bit criticize this as to complete the answer. You can give a bit of criticisms. Already you know some criticisms in terms of negative things, and you can relevance, you can write. Right. Means conclude it by relevance, you can conclude. Now, globalization is irreversible. This is how Chinese president says. Or any other thing you can write it, even if it is minimal state, but it is criticized for Western, let's say Western influence, etc. But ultimately, globalization has forced the states to become more efficient, become more competitive. Right. So that has made states to become more performance oriented, because a state which is not competitive and innovative in globalized environment cannot compete in this globalized environment and cannot benefit. Even we have also, let's say that globalized, and let's say we are benefiting out of globalization, and that benefit is, you know, that UPI is emerging global payment model, and at the same time our innovation index, we have improved also in innovation index. Yes, and that way we can conclude it, right? And that is how it can be on globalization. So let me tell that there was a time we talked about globalization. Then there was a time this globalization was criticized. That can be around 2000, right? Then let's say that came basically, let's call this globalization, you can say deglobalization phase came. Deglobalization phase came 2013, 14 around, when we had Brexit. Just to tell you a bit, those who are not aware, Brexit. Then we talk about re-globalization. And this re-globalization is largely led by developing countries. Developing countries, largely by India and China. India is playing role, China, this you can say that. That's why our Prime Minister talks about globalization more than US President talking about globalization. Yes. So we have not asked questions related to this phase. Past we have asked, the question is pending in UPSC, let's say, means UPSC may ask this. This is how, so they can ask this dynamic nature. We have tried to ask just not that two dynamic questions, but already these things have remained in debate, you should know that. So globalization, deglobalization, re-globalization, all these phases. So you should be aware about, when we say re-globalization, the globalization remains relevant. Now, questions are still, whatever the analysis we have, questions are largely asked on this. Very less questions have been, let's say, focused on this aspect. So that's why we are focusing still on that aspect, not on this aspect. This, that way you should know this.